Hopefully we'll get John Frey in person over here at some point behind the mic. But for the time being, my friend, Mr. Frey, Johnny Frey, how you doing? Good morning to you, sir.
What's going on, Jimmy? How's life down in New Orleans?
Oh, it ain't bad at all. Were you over in Texas right now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Still waiting on you.
Well, I keep on, like I said, if I didn't have to set up studios, if I wasn't one step ahead of the sheriff, I would probably be in your presence at some point sooner rather than later. We probably should set this up, John. Do you still have a wild boar problem up there?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What's going on with that? Why? Okay. First of all, I probably should set up who John is. I mean, after all, he's done some amazing things. He is the business development manager over at Ancora, and we'll talk about Ancora for a second here. But what has caused your area of the world to be overrun with wild hogs?
Well, they're quite the animal. I guess what a lot of people don't realize about hogs is that female sow can have 3 litters a year, and she can have up to 12 piglets at a time. And in 6 months, those piglets are fertile. So
oh my God,
do the math, and you'll see that they just overpopulate like crazy.
I didn't realize they were that of an invasive species. I kind of knew this because we owned a pig. By the way, it wasn't a wild, it wasn't a feral hog, but it was a pain in the ass. I'll tell you that right now. But I didn't realize that they actually produced that quickly and that ferociously. What you got, Madison?
Yeah.
Speaking of invasive species, something that people that aren't from here don't know about are nutria-rats. You know about
Nutria?
a nutria-rat? Nutria, yeah.
Nutria. Oh my God, John, do you know about
right.
you know about nutria?
Yeah, we don't really have very many of those that I'm aware of in this particular area, but I do know down through Central America, whatever, those things are just like everywhere. I think they might be over on the Florida side, maybe.
Oh no, John! I need you to buckle up. You're going to love this. By the way, I wish I'd known you earlier. We actually we got invaded by them in Louisiana. Mm-hmm. Jefferson Parish had such a problem. This is classic Louisiana. The toughest sheriff Jefferson Parish ever had was a guy named Harry Lee. They called him the Chinese Cowboy. He was an attorney, and he was a former policeman who actually owned this Chinese restaurant called the House of Lee. And he runs for sheriff of Jefferson Parish, and he runs for sheriff saying that he's going to empower the citizens to get their rifles out and kill all the nutria. And literally, and basically he told people if they had guns, if they had like 22s, and if they had like, small hunting rifles, to go out there and really do some damage. And people hunted them out in the city of New Orleans' biggest suburb, in Jefferson Parish, kind of whacked them out. It was crazy.
Where I grew up, they even went further, because I grew up like in Bayou country.
Well, you're in Morgan City,
And
right?
Morgan City, Stevensville area.
Oh, yeah,
it's like
John,
close,
that's Bayou.
Near
That's
Pier
Bayou.
Part where Swamp People's filmed.
Yeah.
And so there was an incentive there that if you kill a nutria, and we call it nutria because
Right.
not nutria, but when you kill one, you bring a tail, you get $5. So that's how people would make their extra cash. They would go out and kill a bunch of them and cut their tails off and get money for it.
If I had known that, dude, I've been over there with my gun in a heartbeat, although I keep getting invited by our good friend. By the way, John, for those of you who don't know, from July of 1971 to September of 1995, he was in the Corps as a master gunnery sergeant and then entered the transportation industry. And, John, the reason I'm bringing this up is because right now you're at Ancora, but it's been a long trip. Can you kind of take us through a little bit your transportation bona fides and how long you've been in this game and your kind of route to be where you are today?
Well, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I actually hired on with Werner Enterprises back in 1995 into the recruiting department. And that was when recruiting has made so many different transitions from where we are today from what it was back in those days. But I was there about 21 years. I ended up being the vice president of safety compliance and operation and driver recruiting. And then left there, went down to Stevens Transport, did their recruiting program, and then over to CRST, and now with Ancora. So
I was
a lot of transitions. Wyatt Werner, I made a presentation to the Department of Labor. It always bothered me back in the day that as a military veteran, your GI Bill was only tied to the length of your school. So I had the opportunity to make a presentation to the Department of Labor about veterans benefits and basically gave them a class on Trucking 101. assigned a young lady, Rosanna Smith from me. She was with ETA, and we subsequently developed the first actual. We actually followed the first apprenticeship program for truck driving. Of course, now Fastport's kind of taken the lead on that. From what we initially got started in the industry, and it's turned to be a great program for the trucking industry.
Let me ask you a question too, John, as we crank your volume up over here. Let me ask you the question of, you've been doing recruiting for, in one way or another, even if it's recruiting to kind of just, keep your eye out for talent. Can you talk a little bit about what has changed? You said a lot of changes have gone across the industry in regards to how people recruit, how people target drivers to figure out who they want to bring into their company, both young and old. Talk a little bit about what you've seen.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to reflect a little bit. And you think back to the days when we first started recruiting. I remember, of course, everything was paper. And if someone had submitted an application to you and it had been a few months, we had to walk out and actually go into the backs of trailers, which is where we stored all the files for applications, and hope that you could find a paper application back in those days. And I know, talking with Brad, that's back in the days of Brad Bentley and Roger Fair and all that on the advertising side. And of course, all your publications and all that, that's how you advertise, is all the trucking magazines. It didn't matter if you went into a truck stop or you went into a recruiting office or whatever. You saw all the trucking magazines up on the tables. And you'd sit around there and you flip through there and make sure that your ad made it in there. Then you'd go back and try and figure out if that ad actually did you any good or not. So kind of miss those days. I know you were talking the other day about going into the truck stop and all the tables had the payphones actually right at the table. So when they came in for, to take a meal or whatever, they would be sitting there and they would call in their company to do a check-in. Because back in those days, there was no cell phones, any of that stuff going on. So lots of changes, I would guess.
Well, the other thing is too, John, it strikes me that it's so interesting about the way the technology has changed, though, but it's also kind of changed the approach too, is that people can often, if a driver is applying, they can look at their scores, they can look at their previous work-related record, the places they've worked, the length of their employment, whereas paper allows you to hide stuff. It's much harder to check on stuff. And I was kind of curious, if back in the day, people would try to spot talent, like you see a really good driver, would people actually recruit at the truck stops? Would recruiters give people business cards at the truck stop saying, hey, if you're looking to make a change, you might want to come with us? I mean, was that more prevalent back then? I mean, I realize it's still very difficult to do that at any time because that's just kind of catch as catch can. But was there a more hands-on approach to recruiting than there is now?
Well, absolutely. And of course, this was pre-digital age, so you had to be creative in how you could get out and try and get in front of your market. And of course, like you're saying, one thing truck stops have were truck drivers. So there were a lot of companies that would go to the truck stops and hang out and try and get next to those particular drivers. And of course, then that kind of created another problem. Well, it's now truck stops are more or less a sanctuary. We want our drivers to get in there. We want them to take rest, relax, get the things done that they need to get done, and not be bothered by recruiters. But back in the day, that was a very good place to try and find drivers. Even to the point where we would take trucks. We had some show trucks that we'd bring in there and have like B12 engines in them, pop the hood and all that, and stick around and of course, the drivers would come up and talk to you about the truck, and then you'd want to get their information, try and follow up to get them to come to your company. So, yeah, absolutely, that was a huge market back in the day.
Yeah, and by the way, it really speaks to the changes in hours of service. And as you know, the Trump administration has announced its 9-point plan, to kind of make the road safer and easier for people who are, up to date and have all their T's crossed and their I's dotted to have an easier driving experience. One of the things they've talked about is the flexibility of hours of service, of giving drivers more leeway about how they make their choices, when they want to take their breaks and when they want to drive. And I'm wondering, given the model you're talking about, if that's another kind of victim or kind of casualty of literally the changes in HOS and the onboarding of the ELD. What we've seen is that people can't, one of the biggest complaints I hear all the time, John, and you know this as well because you've been in this industry quite some time, is that people talk about the inability to linger, that you can't hang out in a truck stop and talk to somebody you like and spend a little time shooting the breeze and kind of getting your wind back and your brain going again before getting behind the wheel. And I'm wondering if, in fact, maybe, I love your thoughts on this, if, in fact, they are able to give drivers more flexibility on HOS, if there will be maybe another change in the way we recruit people, because that becomes something else that they can offer people. Because at the end of the day, the company you drive for or the people you drive for determine what your hours of service are within the parameters of the law. But I'm wondering if that flexibility becomes another tool in recruiting, saying, look, as long as you get your hours in legally, we don't care how you do it, can become a good recruiting tool. But also if, in fact, I'm saying a lot of stuff here, John, so I apologize. I'm getting kind of excited. But the idea that if you give people more flexibility, it gives them more time to maybe spend a little more time at the truck stop, which gives them more time to spend with their friends, but also gives recruiters better time to kind of get to know somebody on the road. Am I making any sense? Unpack all of that now, John. Go.
I got you. Those are great questions, perspectives, or whatever. And I think, we got to go back to the 30s when they first actually started hours of service. Someone came up and said, hey, these drivers can only drive this many hours. So what I find interesting enough is there's never really been an actual study, Jim. You get this. Hours of service makes you a safe driver. Now, I'm not debating that one way or the other, but there really never has been one. But yet, since the 1930s, we've been under the hours of service regulations. I find that kind of interesting. And I think you'd agree, whether you're driving a truck or even if you're just driving a car, if you actually drove for 11 hours in one day, you're ready for a break. I don't think anybody would argue that fact either. And of course, as we all know in the industry, when you're driving your rig and you're getting paid by the mile, the more time you can spend on line 3, that's where you're making your money. So the key is for us to be able to maximize our drive time and drive safe. And so you got all these rules with your sleep break, you got to take a break, got to do this, but it doesn't matter sometimes. I mean, if you slept all night one day and you get up, you're driving the next day, and say you're only on the road for 2 hours, the sun's shining, it's a beautiful day out, and all of a sudden you're getting the nods. It seems under the current regulations that a driver would really like to pull over to be safe and take a little nap, but yet that driver is going to get penalized because he's getting off his line 3 time. He really can't stop that clock, et cetera. So what's the famous answers? I don't know, but we still got a way to go to make hours of service not only just safe, but so our drivers can be productive and take that break time, like you said, when they need to take it.
Yeah, and that flexibility is what's so crucial here, because at the end of the day, nobody knows, other than maybe your technician, nobody knows your truck better than you do, and nobody, including your doctor, knows how you feel better than you do. And that's such a good point, too, is one of the places where the flexibility, and we'll get to recruiting here in a second because it all sets this up. One of the things about that flexibility is you hit the nail on the head. Sometimes you do 11 hours in really, really tough weather, really, really, hazardous conditions, and you are as crystal clear as you possibly could be, no problems whatsoever. The next day, you're right, it's sunny skies, the road is open, the good stuff is happening, and you're like, good gosh almighty, I feel tired. I got to pull this over. And of course, the math then says you adrenalized up the day before during that stressful time, and now your body's ready to shut down. And so how is a recruiter And as a company, do you go to somebody and say, look, we want to give you a little flexibility here to play around? Do you think if, in fact, this gets my second point, if, in fact, we get that flexibility of hours of service, that becomes a recruiting tool that some companies offer. Hey, we're not going to press the clock on you as much. As long as you get there when you're supposed to, we're willing to work with any sort of flexibility you want to play with. So if we end up getting a call from you at 7 o'clock and you're back on the road because you want to make some time overnight, even though that's how it was planned, we're happy if you do that, provided you get there safe and sound. Am I making sense, John, or am I just being bloviating Jimmy Mack right now?
No. I think that makes sense. And of course, I think most companies out there will tell you that if their driver doesn't feel safe driving down the road, they want their drivers to pull off, get the necessary rest or whatever. But then on the other side, you've got the production side. We've got all this technology. We're trip planning. The days of getting out your atlas and looking at where your weigh scales were at, making sure you got an advance to pay for your tickets, for your scale tickets, tolls, all that sort of stuff. All that now goes in the Total computer, and when you're getting dispatched these days, we know exactly where you are, how far you're going, where you're going to be, are you going to make it on time, are you going to be early, all that sort of stuff. So all that goes into the planning grids. So somewhere in the middle, you're right, Jimmy, we need to find that out, and it's going to be on the regulatory side that says, hey, I want to give my driver a break, or my driver needs to take a break. How can I do this without penalizing the driver? Because that's the drivers, they're on the road to make money and to feed their family. So somewhere we need to get that figured out. I don't think we've quite done it yet.
It's interesting, John, because you actually, we talk about five-tool baseball players. You might be a five-tool trucking man because you understand this from the safety side, the driver's side. You understand this from the recruiting side, the administrative side. You've actually gotten to look at all this different kind of stuff. And you've been on the board of CVTA. You've literally been everywhere that trucking is making these decisions left and right. And I was kind of curious, and I wanted you to talk about Ancora as well too. Anytime I get you on here, I kind of want to remind people who Ancora is. So let's set up Ancora, talk about what you're doing there now, but also talking about how training has changed. See, John, I'm working in every segment of the show all through you, so I appreciate you. Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, Ancora Education we're a training institution, and we basically have 4 or 5 pillars where we have an Ancora Academy, Ancora Education, Ancora Training, and even Ancora High School. But we'll provide over 200 different types of curriculum to individuals. We have community colleges that we actually own. I'm sure you heard of some of them: Arizona Automotive Institute, Berks Technical Institute, South Texas Votech, Miller-Mott, just to name a few. Those are some of our brick and mortars that we have there. We also partner with a lot of community colleges where we provide training for them, and Ancora Academy, where you can do all sorts of different curriculum all the way up to getting your bachelor's degree. All these are accredited at a very low cost. You can take them online, in person, so lots of different things. We work with a lot of employers where we bring the training to the actual employer. We do a lot of CDL training, diesel tech training, reefer training, welding, HVAC, all sorts of different careers for individuals to take advantage of. So that's kind of Ancora Education. And you're talking about recruiting, and of course, recruiting is very cyclic in the fact that depending on the freight needs, the driver needs, it seems like sometimes you got plenty of freight and not enough drivers, and then sometimes you got plenty of drivers and not enough freight. And it kind of goes around with this different cycle. Of course, the cycle that the transportation industry is in right now, along with a lot of other folks, is it's still very, well, where's the bottom? Have we hit bottom? When's it going to get better? When's it going to get better? When am I going to get better rates? When am I going to get better freight? So that's kind of where we've been for the last few years. So everybody, I think, is ready to get going with their future. I will throw out there that, a lot of companies have backed off taking entry-level drivers into their fleet just because the freight market doesn't make sense for them to grow or whatever. But I will say we train a lot of drivers, very good drivers that we have out there. And if there's some companies out there that are looking for some great entry-level drivers, please let me know. I have a list and a continuing list of very good, talented individuals that have completed driving school and looking to get with good companies. So if you're in the market for those, let me know too. We'll be sure and help them out.
I wanted to spend a little time here in our final moments with John Frey, who is a friend of the show, does business development, and is the manager of that program over there at Ancora. John, you and I got a chance to have a remarkable experience over at SiriusXM Studios in Los Angeles. I was able to get a whole bunch of you guys out there. You actually got a chance to head on over to Vietnam, and I wanted just to let our listeners out there want more than just, rates and recruiting strategies and safety policies. I wanted you to kind of tell them about your trip to Vietnam. It is such a cool story, and you ended up roughing it and getting the chance to talk to a lot of people over there. It turns out that they like us a lot, don't they?
Well, absolutely. And, of course, most of our time was still in South Vietnam, for the trip. And then the latter part, we ended up north, up in Hanoi. But it was a realization, I think, that we were actually over there for the 50th anniversary since the end of the Vietnam War, which kind of makes you feel old.
A little bit.
A little bit. Think about it.
Yeah, as my dad said, a little bit. He said, just felt a little old. He said, just felt a little old. He got that welcome home ceremony, too, and he's like, I feel old, man, old.
Yeah.
We meet people now, and we think, you're a World War II veteran? Like, no, I'm a Vietnam veteran, dude. Get over yourself. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. But you got over there. Tell me about it. Go ahead.
So with that in perspective, I mean, most of the population, under 55, let's say, had no realization of the war, what we call our war, the war, Vietnam War. So, yes, they were very friendly, very curious. They're very industrious over there. Of course, there's not a lot of money in that country. I think if you cashed in $100, you got 2.4 million. Their currency is called dong. So you had a lot of their money, to enjoy the countryside or whatever. It did seem like a lot of the South Vietnamese people are still kind of penalized for supporting the United States. So the South Vietnamese are still not allowed to own property over there or be in the government. And most of the money that they make goes up north to the Hanoi side to go there, which was unfortunate in a way.
Well, it's also a good reminder, too, John, about why it's so important that we do, that the normalization of relations with them is so important, because the better we are as friends with them on a government-to-government level, the more kind of friendly pressure as opposed to unfriendly pressure we can exert on them to say, hey, man, maybe you want to share stuff a little bit. Maybe you want to open stuff up and we can give you a trade deal or something. That's part of, and visits like yours remind people that if you guys can be friends with the North Vietnamese, that maybe the South Vietnamese and the North Vietnamese can be friends as well. And that's an important part about the trip. You went with our good friend Sarah Lee. Now, John, you're coming next week, right? We're going to see you down here, right?
I'm doing everything I can to get there. Brad's kind of got me on a short leash. He said, I got to get down there and see you guys. So I'm doing everything I can. I'm planning on it.
Yeah, because the other thing is you got to come for another reason. Sarah Lee's coming. So, we've got her on a short leash, too. And you guys went with Waypoint Vets, was part of what you guys were up to and doing. That's a remarkable program, isn't it? I mean, it's like, and I keep on telling people, my brother is a combat veteran who is dealing with some issues, and Sarah has reached out to him. But I just wanted you to kind of let people know that if you struggled after the military and you're looking for some purpose and you're looking for a place to go and people to hang around with, it's a great place to start, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And of course, Sarah, had her issues after she had returned or whatever, and of course, her story is very remarkable. I'm trying to remember her blog, Jimmy. If you know off the top of your head, remind me where she biked across the United States, just her, no sponsors.
Oh
no
yeah,
nothing.
it was crazy, dude. Yeah, she'll be. And guys, I'm not giving away the story here. She'll be honest about it. She attempted to take her life, and then when she woke up in the hospital, she realized she wanted to live terribly, and made the decision that she was going to get on a bicycle and go from the west to the East Coast. And boy, I got to tell you, John, and she's right. She talks about riding a bicycle out west. That's brutal, man. That is brutal because you feel like you're
Yeah.
always going up. You feel like it isn't until you get past the Mississippi that you begin to see the world change a little bit. Yeah, it's a great story, and she's a great American because she cares like you do deeply about our veterans out there. And you've done some focusing on making sure that veterans make their way into the industry, correct? I mean, you guys are vet ready. I mean, Ancora is vet ready, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And of course, that starts back just with being a veteran and wanting to see veterans get in the industry. They're especially into this industry. They're used to being away from home. Their significant others are used to taking care of things when you're not at home. Their work ethic is very, very good, and we owe them. So whatever the United States can do to help take care of our veterans, and then absolutely we want to get them. We want to get them employed, and we want to be able to take care of them.
John, you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe it. By the way, John was only supposed to be on 15 minutes and graciously gave us much more time than that. We're out of time, John. Really quickly, tell people where they can go to find out more about Ancora, and then we'll let you shuffle off this radio coil.
Awesome. Well, Jimmy, it was great speaking to y'all. Hope to see y'all next week. I think it's a great platform y'all got going on. You can catch us at AncoraEducation.com. That's ANCORA education.com. We'd love to hear from y'all, and anything we can do in the training arena, we're there for you.
Thank you, John, and thanks for a great 30,000-foot view of recruiting over the last 30 years. AncoraEducation.com or AncoraTraining.com. Either one works, by the way. Thank you, John. Go have the best of days, and I'll see you next week.
All right. Sounds good, Jimmy. Thank you.
All righty, man.